Patsy Ramsey, who had adored her daughter, was being painted as a cold, manipulative mother who pushed her child too far into pageants and perfection. John Ramsey, the businessman, was accused of being distant, controlling, hiding something. And their 9-year-old son Burke, just a child, was dragged into public scrutiny. It was the kind of attention no family could survive unchanged. The evidence that spoke and the evidence that lied. Investigators tried to build a case, but the evidence told conflicting stories. The ransom note was the centerpiece. Handwriting experts couldn't agree. Some said Patsy's handwriting shared similarities, especially in certain letters and strokes. Others insisted it wasn't a match. No fingerprints were found on the paper, except for Patsy's and the officer who'd handled it. The garrote used in JonBenét's death was made from materials inside the home: a paintbrush handle from Patsy's craft supplies, a nylon cord from their belongings. Yet, forensic testing found unidentified DNA under JonBenét's fingernails and in her underwear, a male profile that didn't match any family member. That DNA would later become the single thread that kept hope alive for an intruder theory. Still, questions lingered. Why was there no sign of forced entry? Why had JonBenét's body been hidden in such a deliberate way, wrapped in her favorite blanket? And why was the ransom note written at all, when the crime didn't resemble a kidnapping? It was as though the scene was staged, either by a stranger trying to confuse investigators, or by someone close trying to cover up a tragic mistake. Theories that tore a nation apart. Over the years, 3 major theories emerged, each one with its believers and its flaws. 1. The Intruder Theory. This theory suggested that someone had broken into the Ramsey home that night, possibly through a basement window, and waited for the family to sleep. The motive? Unclear. Maybe sexual assault, maybe ransom, maybe something darker. Supporters pointed to the unidentified DNA, the presence of a suitcase under the basement window, as if someone had tried to use it to escape, and a footprint near the crime scene that didn't match anyone in the family. But there were gaps. No fingerprints. No clear entry or exit. No sign of a stranger inside the home. Still, the DNA kept this theory alive, haunting every discussion that came after. 2. The Family Theory. This theory turned the lens inward, on the Ramseys themselves. Some investigators believed JonBenét's death was an accident, possibly during a moment of anger or discipline, covered up to protect someone in the house. The ransom note, they argued, was a desperate attempt to redirect suspicion. Supporters pointed to inconsistencies in Patsy's handwriting, the strange behavior of the parents after the body was found, and the fact that JonBenét's body had been moved. But again, there was no proof. No confession. No physical evidence linking either parent to the act. And the DNA didn't match them. 3. The Burke Theory. The most controversial of all. Some speculated that JonBenét's older brother, Burke, who was 9 at the time, might have accidentally hurt his sister during a moment of childhood frustration, perhaps over food, toys, or attention, and that their parents covered it up in panic. This theory was largely based on behavioral clues and unverified reports from the 911 call, where a faint child's voice was allegedly heard after Patsy thought she'd hung up. But again, there was no evidence, and certainly no motive that made sense for a child. Years later, Burke himself would publicly deny any involvement in interviews, insisting he had nothing to do with his sister's death. The truth, it seemed, was buried deeper than the basement. A case lost to time. As the years passed, the investigation faltered. Detectives came and went. New district attorneys took over, each with different opinions on who was to blame. In 1999, a grand jury secretly voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey on charges of child abuse resulting in death, but the district attorney declined to prosecute, saying there wasn't enough evidence. The public never learned about that decision until years later. In 2008, DNA testing using new technology cleared the Ramsey family officially. The unknown male DNA was confirmed as belonging to someone outside the household. It was supposed to be a turning point, but the identity of that person, the phantom in the data, was never found. The case went cold. A mother's plea and a family's silence. Patsy Ramsey never stopped declaring her innocence. In interviews, her voice would tremble as she spoke about her daughter. "I didn't kill JonBenét. I loved her with every breath I had." She held on to faith even as the world accused her. But time wasn't kind. In 2006, after a long battle with ovarian cancer, Patsy passed away, without ever knowing who had taken her child's life. John Ramsey continued to fight quietly for justice, avoiding the media, rebuilding what remained of his life. And Burke, the once little boy in the shadows, grew up under the weight of whispers, accused of something he didn't do, forced to live in the long echo of his sister's death. The false confession. That same year, something strange happened. A man named John Mark Karr, a schoolteacher living overseas, confessed to killing JonBenét. He claimed he'd been with her the night she died, that it was an accident. The world erupted. Headlines screamed, "Case solved." But the relief was short-lived. DNA testing proved he wasn't the killer. His story unraveled under scrutiny, details didn't match, timelines failed, and he was exposed as a disturbed fantasist obsessed with the case. Once again, the truth slipped away. Hope in the shadows. In the years that followed, the case would see countless documentaries, TV specials, and new analyses. Every few years, technology promised breakthroughs: touch DNA, digital reconstructions, new handwriting algorithms, but the mystery only deepened. JonBenét's face remained frozen in time. The little girl with the perfect curls and bright smile, forever 6, forever December. For those who knew her, the case wasn't about media frenzy or theories, it was about a stolen child. For the public, it became a mirror, reflecting our fascination with beauty, tragedy, and the darkness that can hide behind perfect lives. And for law enforcement, it remained a haunting reminder of how fragile justice can be, how a single mistake, a single missed clue, can silence a story forever. The legacy of a lost child. Today, nearly 3 decades later, the Ramsey home has changed owners many times. Neighbors come and go, unaware of the shadows that once walked its halls. But to those who remember, the image of that little girl, smiling under the bright stage lights, crowned with ribbons and innocence, still lingers like a ghost over American memory. JonBenét Ramsey's story is more than a crime. It's a question that refuses to die. Who could harm a child like her? And why has the truth stayed hidden so long? Maybe one day DNA will speak louder. Maybe one day someone will confess or science will find what human error erased. Until then, JonBenét remains the symbol of an unsolved heartbreak, a name whispered in true crime circles, a mystery that never sleeps. In the end, the most haunting part of her story isn't how she died, but how no one has ever answered for it. And in that silence, the world keeps wondering, what really happened on Christmas night in Boulder, 1996?